Isn't it strange how YouTube channels don't have intros anymore? And yeah, I include myself in that. Way back at the very beginning of my channel, I started with the whole Control Alt Reese intro. Obviously, the logo came up on the screen, and there was like this beep boop sound effect, which was actually from. Here's a good fact for you. That was actually from Escape from the Planet of the Robot Monsters on the Atari ST, one of my favourite games back in the day, and a really good port of the arcade. Of the awesome arcade game. And yeah, so there's this beep boop noise, the logo appeared on the screen, and then it said Control Alt Reese in like a computerized robotic voice, which was actually from a speech synthesizer that I had. I think it came on an ST format cover disc. That was on the Atari ST as well. And yeah, then it would do like the Atari ST like crash screen with the bombs that would come up on screen, and like the grey background and that stuff. And that intro did kind of evolve a little bit as time went on. It started off, obviously it started off with the whole kind of song and dance thing. And then I had so on the Atari ST, when you press the keys down, there was like a beep noise that came from the speaker, which I guess was like a holdover from the Atari 8-bit days, because they actually had an internal speaker which was kind of specifically for that purpose, to give you like that audible feedback as you were typing. And so I held down a key on the ST, and it made this beep, 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 beep noise. And I had that as part of my intro originally. I dropped that very quickly after the first few videos because it was quite annoying. And I just kept the one beep. And then I dropped the bit with the bombs, so I just had the Control Alt Reese bit. And then at the beginning of this year, I decided to just do away with the intro completely. I'd kind of settled on this format last year where I'd kind of stand in front of the camera or sit in front of the camera and just explain what was going to happen in the video for sort of the first 30 seconds, have some B-roll clips that came up, just kind of obviously demonstrating the various bits. And then the intro would happen, and then immediately after the intro, I would go straight into the actual content of the video. And I thought that was a pretty good format, but I've even dropped that as well. And the reason for that is retention. It's something that's known as retention editing in the world of YouTube, where you kind of have to hook people immediately, and you have to show them stuff and say, this is why you should watch this video. Like the first 30 seconds of the video is like an advert for the upcoming video, just showing them all of this stuff and saying, please don't leave. This is a great video. You need to watch it. I'm going to show you all these wonderful things. It's kind of a shame, but I quite enjoy it, actually. It kind of pushes me to keep things concise. And since I've started doing that, I've noticed that things have started to improve as far as figures and things are concerned as well. Viewing figures and view counts and retention and all that kind of stuff. So it does work. And as long as it's done right, and you're not talking at 100 mile an hour and doing the Mr. Beast thing and shouting in people's faces and big text coming up on screen and all that kind of stuff, it can work for technical videos like ours. Obviously, this is something that I think I talked about this in the very first one of these that I did. But yeah, just an interesting note on the missing intros of YouTube. Oh, by the way, this is Reese Rambles, and that's another interesting point, isn't it? Because podcasts still have intros. Quite often you'll hit play on a podcast and it will start playing the theme tune, and there'll be like a 10 or 15 second intro, and if there's a video version of that, they usually have like an animated intro to go along with it on YouTube itself. So I guess that's not quite dead in the podcast world anyway. But yeah, just a kind of ironic, self-aware example of that. So welcome to Reese Rambles. This is the official predominantly audio offering of Control Alt Reese, kind of slowly morphing into a podcast as it gets a bit more professional, but for now it's just me sat in my spare bedroom talking a load of rubbish. So the previous episode of this, oh by the way, it's time to go off on another tangent. In the past week, YouTube have announced this new podcast feature, and basically, I don't know if it's to actually start making YouTube music a useful service that people might actually use, but they finally recognised that podcasts are a thing, and when we upload videos now, we can actually mark them as a podcast, and then it will be kind of pushed as an audio thing on YouTube Music, as well as I don't know how it's handled differently as far as YouTube's concerned. So I'm going to be doing that with these going forward. Obviously, I was uploading them separately as audio to Anchor FM, which has now been rebranded as podcasts for Spotify or something, which is a whole separate can of worms, because I had a separate personal Spotify account that I use for listening to music, and then I created a new account on Anchor FM for uploading these, and then 4 episodes later they said, oh no, by the way, we're merging the two, but you've still got 2 separate accounts. So every time I want to upload one of these, I have to log out of my account and manually upload it. And the first time I went to it, I didn't realise that was the case, and I thought, oh, where's all my uploads gone? What the hell's going on here? And it was all just confusing and very poorly communicated. But that's the world of the web nowadays, with mergers and acquisitions and all of that kind of stuff. And obviously I think users are quite often secondary to those considerations. But we're good. We're all good. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the previous episode. Obviously, I called that one the Clint Apocalypse, I think. And I talked a little bit about Clint from LGR. Oh, talking of intros, by the way, he is one of the big channels that does still have an intro on YouTube. He's got like his animated IBM PC thing that pops up and spins around and makes like the boot up noises, accessing the drives and the beep and all that kind of stuff, with the smooth jazz in the background. The 8-Bit Guy is another one, isn't he? He's got the music. I think that was by Anders Jensen, I think is the name of the guy that does all of that kind of cool chiptune. Well, is it chiptune? Kind of retro inspired music, and I think he did 8-Bit Guy's theme tune. So there's 2 big channels that do still have intros. So I guess they're not completely dead within our niche. I think Adrian's Digital Basement, he's still got his intro, hasn't he? Yeah. Anyway, tangent. So yeah, I spent some time singing Clint's praises as kind of a big influence on me in the last one. And what I didn't mention at the time was that I'd actually sent him an email asking if he wanted to be Jack Trammell, the CEO of Atari in the 1980s, in a video that I was working on at the time, which was the Atari PC video. And it had been a couple of days at that point, and he hadn't replied to me. Now, I've emailed him a few times over the years, and he's always replied, and he's always been really friendly and really sort of helpful. Really nice, approachable guy, and a proper member of the community. And so I wasn't sure whether he was going to apply. It would have been maybe a bit out of character for him, but to be fair, I was asking him to do something and spend his time to produce something for me, and not really offering anything in return. So I certainly wouldn't have blamed him if he was too busy for that or whatever. I certainly wouldn't have held it against him. And then I woke up the very next morning after recording that particular ramble, and I had an email from him with a WAV file attached. And the rest is history, as they say. If you've seen that video, you'll know that I ended up using that sound clip in that video, and he was Jack Trammell, declaring war on the computer industry. And that's a spoiler, but of course you've obviously watched it by now. So that was very cool. And then I tweeted about it. I've actually kind of stopped using Twitter. I think I've talked about this before. I stopped using Twitter completely. And then just recently, just this past week or so, I've kind of been going on once a day, maybe at the beginning of the day, and then maybe again sort of later on in the afternoon, just once or twice, just to check my notifications and, especially in the immediate aftermath of posting a video, because you do get comments on there and stuff, and it's good to sort of engage with people and not just shove these things out into the void and then just ignore everyone. And I tweeted about it, and he'd retweeted it, and very kindly of him, to his 120,000 followers on Twitter. And yeah, he said that it was a fantastic video as usual from Control-Alt-Reese, which kind of implies that he's a regular viewer, which that really made my day. And I got a load of views and a load of new subscribers off the back of that. So thank you very much, Clint. And it just reinforces everything that I said about him being a lovely member of the community and a wonderful person. But yes, I should probably move on from that topic now. But you never know. Watch this space. Maybe I'll appear on his channel at some point. Or I don't think he's known for doing collabs and stuff, is he? Probably quite wisely, because you never know. He may end up that I'm a complete psychopath, and all the skeletons that are in my closet come out, and then anyone who's ever worked with me will end up tarred with that brush. And it's happened in the retro community, unfortunately. So yeah, don't work with me. I'm a wrong'un. And on that note, my second channel, Reese Rambles, has actually lost 3 subscribers. as a direct result of these rambles, apparently. So I guess people maybe subscribe to see the beekeeping stuff and the duck stuff and like the other random crap that I've been posting to that channel over the years. And once these things started releasing weekly, they were like, oh no, I'm not interested in this, and unsubscribed. But the odd thing is that they've all got 100% like to dislike ratio. So even though YouTube took away the dislike count on the front end, we can still see it in the back end in YouTube Studio. And obviously 100% of people who are bothering to interact with, well, I don't say bothering as if you're a lazy person if you don't. But the people that do either upvote or downvote stuff are unanimously upvoting my rambles, which is great. So yeah, if you could continue to do that, I bet I'm going to get a thumbs down on this one, and you cheeky listeners. And if you want to engage and comment, I do read all of the comments on there as well. I've actually kind of fallen out of the habit of reading all of the comments on my main channel, purely because of how huge the solo videos are, and they get multiple comments a day, and it's the same stuff over and over again. And there's a lot of very negative people. I know I've talked about negative people in the past. You know, people who hate solar power, and that they see it pop up on the YouTube homepage and they click on it just to comment on how much they hate it. And it's like, no wonder these videos keep popping up, because you keep clicking on them and interacting with them. You know, if you just ignored them, they'd go away. But I don't want to make out like it's a huge thing, because it's not. Even those, they're overwhelmingly positive. But you do get the odd one. So I thought, sod it, I'm not going to bother wasting my time checking those comments on those videos anymore. So I go to specific videos and I go to the comments, and particularly ones that I've just uploaded, I'll be very active in sort of checking them for the first 2 or 3 days or so, and then maybe check in on them every few days afterwards. And then that kind of tails off as I start to get a lot of the same sort of repetitive questions and stuff. It just takes so much time just to read all of the comments, and I kind of feel obliged to reply to them as well. But I do read every single comment on this second channel, because I don't get all that many. And I like to try to reply, but I know there's going to be quite a few people listening who have commented and sort of shared their experiences and stuff, and I haven't replied. And that's not because I'm being rude or because I don't have the time or anything like that. I do enjoy reading them, and of course other people listening will be reading them too. It's just I'm not really sure what to say in a lot of cases. I could post a very quick reply saying, oh, thanks for sharing, that's amazing, kind of thing. But it would be kind of sort of copy and paste, cookie cutter kind of responses, and it would be probably not entirely sincere. And me being the sort of overthinker that I am, I think that I think that an insincere response is probably even worse than no response, because you read it and you go, oh, that's nice, give it a thumbs up and the heart thing, just to sort of acknowledge that you've seen it. And then, just posting the same response to every single comment is a little bit disingenuous. Is that the word? I think that's a word. So yes, I wanted to talk. I was thinking about this last night, actually. In fact, I want to be entirely honest with you and say that this is actually the third time that I've sat down to record this. I've already recorded this ramble twice, and it's been completely different every time. And I went off down quite a negative route last time. I think this is something that's happened in the past as well. And I edited out sort of some of the worst parts. Like I say, I'm a really big overthinker, and I was listening to it and just thinking people might take this the wrong way. And I was talking about trolls again. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So I was talking about Nostalgia Nerd and his arcade bar that he's opening in Norwich, and just the response to that, and how all the kind of the usual trolls have all come out of the woodwork. Now, I've never been to Norwich. I don't really have any plans of ever visiting there. And yeah, I've watched Nostalgia Nerd's videos over the years. He was kind of an influence of mine, and Ashen's, he's involved as well. Obviously, big fan of his his poking around stuff on his sofa and eating weird stuff with Barry Lewis, and of course the amazing movies that he made as well. Quite an accomplished member of the British retro YouTube scene. But I'm not really members of their communities and sort of big supporters of them, and I didn't really feel obliged to kind of help out with that, because like I say, I don't think I'm ever going to visit it. And I don't think they've really made it clear what their plan is, which is kind of left a bit of a that's kind of left the that's kind of the weakness that's attracted these trolls and what they're all kind of chipping away at. But obviously I want to kind of wish them the best of luck with it. It's good to have more of these retro venues popping up all over the country. But if it is an arcade, there's another arcade just around the corner. And if it's just a pub with a few arcade machines in it, then that's great. But I'm not really a pub person, to be honest. But yeah, I hope it does well, and it's a shame that people have kind of felt the need to jump on it. People are well within their rights to ask questions and all that, of course. But yeah, so in the previous take of this ramble, I spent quite a lot of time talking about that and about a conversation that I'd had with someone about that, and I've just punched the desk. And I think it took a bit of a turn that people may have perceived as not me being negative, but just kind of focusing too much on negative things and the negative responses. And I don't want to keep doing that. This is a positive place. And so on that tangent, and this is something that actually came up in that conversation that I was having with that friend. There's a very good friend of mine who was my very first customer when I set up as a self-employed person 12 years ago doing software development. And I was working in a job that I wasn't really enjoying at the time, just making websites. And that's something that I want to talk about in a lot more detail at some point. I think I want to tell the story of my kind of my not so successful relationship with the education system, and then my experiences with having a real job for a few years before sort of going out on my own. But that is a whole story for another time. But I was working as a web developer at a local company, getting on really well. I'd had a few promotions and a few pay rises and stuff, and I was getting on quite successfully in this small business. But I wasn't happy there, and my immediate manager was a bit of an idiot, to be honest. Really not qualified to do the job. And so I'd mentioned to this friend of mine that I was maybe considering going self-employed and kind of striking out on my own. And he ran his own business. He still runs his own business. He sold the one that he owned at the time, and has since started a new one. But he said, I've been looking to completely redevelop my website. Now, we can do that through your current employer, or if you do want to set up as self-employed, I will guarantee that you've got that income. I'll pay you what they were paying you for the first 12 months. So you can get established and you can build my website for me, and you're completely free to, as long as that happens and deadlines are met and the website gets finished and gets looked after and supported and maintained, then you're completely free to go out and find other customers as well. And there was a lot of thought that went into that. And there's a whole kind of backstory about a whole ongoing situation that was happening at my employer at the time that I really wasn't happy about. And it was kind of, I'm over it now. And, I have a good relationship with the people involved. It's all water under the bridge kind of stuff. And I am far better off now in my current situation than I was at the time. But at the time it was like, I need to get away from this. This is not a good environment, and this is not what I want in my life. Literally with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, had just bought our first house. So we'd both kind of committed to this big joint mortgage as well, which was going to be coming out every month. So it was a really big step for me. And literally we moved into the house, and then within the week I'd quit my job to pursue this self-employment thing. And so this friend of mine who owned this business and very kindly gave me my first contract and got me sort of on my feet, I remember talking to him back in the day, and there was something that we discussed which has stayed with me ever since. And I thought I'd bring it up here. I thought it would be an interesting talking point. And like I say, I brought it up in a conversation with another friend the other day when we were talking about all that stuff. And so the conversation was about interviewing, and he said that when he interviews people for his business at the time, which was a mail order business, they also had like a small trade counter / shop type thing. And they had warehouse staff and office staff, people answering the phones, customer service, all that kind of stuff. And he said that everyone that he interviews, he asks them a question. Now, this is going to sound like, LinkedIn type wankery, and I promise he's not that kind of person. He's a very good friend of mine, and he wouldn't be if he was that kind of person. But it's kind of a really fascinating question. And so he'd sit them down and, ask them about their experience and their education and all that usual stuff. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time, and all that sort of cliche rubbish that you have to go through the motions of in interviews. And then there'd be one last thing at the end of the interview, and he would say, do you consider yourself to be a lucky person? Now, that's a strange question, isn't it? Like I say, it's kind of like something that you'd read on LinkedIn, followed by a huge essay about, I was driving my 5-year-old daughter to school the other day, and we had this whole conversation. It's like, yeah, it's bollocks, isn't it? But it's. I think the way that someone answers such a question kind of says a lot about them. There's this big belief that luck is where preparedness meets opportunity, and that you make your own luck in life and that kind of stuff. And I consider myself to be very lucky and to be very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in, to kind of be in charge of my own destiny. And there's a really good, just going off on another tangent as I do, there's a good quote from Bob Dylan when I think it was like a music journalist interviewed him back in the 70s. And they said, how do you define success? And Bob Dylan said, and I don't have the quote up here in front of me, so apologies if it's not correct word for word. But he said, success is when a man wakes up in the morning and he goes to bed at night, and he spends the time in between doing what he wants to do. And that's what I do. And I don't say that to brag about it. Of course, there's also a huge risk involved. I don't have any kind of job security or anything like that. I do have longer term contracts and stuff, but ultimately the buck stops with me. And that is something that I do think about quite a lot, and something that does kind of keep me awake at night, particularly when I kind of choose to spend some of my time working on sort of creative stuff like the YouTube channel and that side of things, rather than working on work-related stuff that I could get paid for. And I am incredibly lucky and incredibly fortunate to be in the position that I'm in, and I recognise that I'm incredibly privileged to have that opportunity. And I don't, I don't say it to sound big-headed or anything like that, but that luck is the result of a decision that I made 12 years ago, of an opportunity that came along, through a friend of mine. He wasn't a close friend at the time. He was kind of a friend of a friend, but nowadays I do consider him to be a close friend. That opportunity came along, and I'd just taken on that big risk in the form of the mortgage and all of that kind of stuff, and I was unhappy with my job, and I just thought, yeah, let's try it. Let's give it a try. And like a lot of the stuff that I've kind of done in my life, I've used to run half marathons, and I've run a marathon. I haven't run for quite a long time now. I started doing CrossFit. I was in a band. We'll get back to the CrossFit thing. That's the whole cult thing that I'm contractually obliged to try and talk you into. That's kind of what this whole podcast's building up to. But we'll just set that aside for a second. I was in a band called Titan. I'll link to some of our stuff down in the notes so you can have a look. I played the bass, and we recorded 2 EPs. The second one unfortunately didn't get finished because the band ended up going a bit dysfunctional and disintegrating. I've still got some of the files and stuff for that. Perhaps that's something that we could finish off at some point. Although I think we are coming up on the 10th anniversary of our our last ever gig, so that ship has probably well and truly sailed. But yeah, a friend of mine asked me, "Do you want to play bass in my band?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then these things came along. Do you want to play this big local music festival? And it was like, "Yeah," And we were in the paper and we were on the radio, and all this stuff came along, and we just kept saying yes to stuff, and stuff kept happening. And that's it's another example of kind of how I find myself in these situations. Like CrossFit, for example, which I told you we'd get back to. Obviously, I'd done all the running and stuff, and I was training to run my very first marathon and my very last marathon, as it happens. And I I happened across this article online that said, it was in one of the running magazines, and it was a guy who basically was getting tired he kind of wanted to find an alternative to all of the hours and hours of running that you have to do to train to kind of build up to one of these things. And I was in the same boat, I was like, do I really have to run do I really have to go out and do like 20-mile runs to train myself for this marathon? That's a huge amount of time. And it's not it's not a very pleasant experience. Quite why someone would apply to run a marathon when they don't actually enjoy running, I don't know. But I think anyone who claims that they do enjoy running is a liar. I read this article, and it was about this guy who'd signed up for his local CrossFit gym, and he'd massively cut the amount of sort of training hours that he was doing running for this upcoming marathon. And the coach kind of put him through this specific training program. And when the day came and the guy actually ran the marathon, and this was the kind of person who runs multiple marathons a year and had been doing for sort of most of his adult life. He ran this marathon, and he beat like his personal best time by about 15 minutes. I mean, this is a guy that was running like 3-hour marathons anyway, so he was at elite times. Just to put that into perspective, the one that I ran was 4 hours, 58 minutes and 30 seconds, I think. It was literally just under the 5-hour mark. And that was the Birmingham Marathon, which I think was 2019. I think it was maybe 2018 when I ran that. So, this guy was already very good. And I read that and I just thought, I should do CrossFit instead. And it was kind of a means to an end. And then I got in touch with the local gym owner, and she was really friendly, really nice. We're still very good friends. I'm still a regular there. She's gone from strength to strength. She's moved into a bigger gym and all that kind of stuff. So great to see her succeed as well. And so I became a member of the cult, and I've done competitions ever since. I went through a year or so when I kind of really seriously got into actual CrossFit competitions as well. So we'd all travel to another CrossFit gym somewhere else in the country, and we'd all compete. What's the total amount of weight that you can lift in this time, and how fast can you complete this workout, and all that kind of stuff. Very interesting how they kind of turned working out into a competitive sport. If you've never looked into it. And it's it's a great community that's great for people of all kind of experience levels and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's the sales talk over. But again, another couple of examples of stuff where I've kind of had these opportunities, and I thought, why not? I'll give it a go. And same with the YouTube channel as well. I was modding consoles and stuff, and then a guy called Jason Bradbury got in touch with me, who's a quite well-known tech journalist in the UK, and he asked me to modify some consoles for him, and I thought, I'll record all of this. I'll get my camera out and I'll record some bits of video of this work and stuff, and maybe I can sort of put a bit of a video together and kind of tell this story, because it's not the kind of opportunity that comes along every day. And I put that together, and I was really pleased with it. I thought, I've been making videos for quite a while now. Perhaps I should start a proper YouTube channel and kind of have a proper go at this. And that's what I did. And now I'm still doing it 3 years later, which is quite unusual for me to stick with a hobby for so long. But it's the kind of thing that I can see myself sticking with for a very long time, really. But look, do I consider myself to be a lucky person? I do. I'm incredibly lucky. I mean, I'm just to be a bit more serious and kind of stop stroking my own ego for a few minutes. I'm very lucky to be born in the part of the world that I was born in, to the parents that I was born to have had the upbringing that I've had, and to be a white middle-class, middle-aged male, and all the opportunities that come along with that. I do consider myself to be incredibly privileged in that respect as well. And I know I appreciate it's more difficult for people who don't have that privilege to do these things. I think it's important for people like me to encourage and kind of help people that want to take those opportunities and to encourage them. So there you go, an interesting conversation, and far more positive than the original version of this ramble that I recorded last time. Like I say, it wasn't me being negative or attacking anyone or anything like that, but I did bring up some negative stuff that had been going on in the community, and we don't want to dwell on that, do we? We want to kind of take a look out there and see what opportunities are out there and what's positive, and kind of dream big. That's what this predominantly audio offering should be about. So yeah, I think I'm happy with that. I think that's all I've got for now. One day I will tell you that story, all about how I used to have a real job and how I failed at education, because it's quite an interesting story with some interesting twists and turns that include people coming to my house and people leaving me nasty voicemails and salespeople altering quotes to make my life difficult and all that kind of stuff. So yes, subscribe so you don't miss that in the future whenever I do talk about it. Anyway, I should get on and finish this video that I need to finish today so that can go out on the channel. Maybe that will be out by the time you're listening to this as well. And I'll have had a super productive week. But until then, I guess I have no idea what the future holds. I'm going to go and make another cup of tea. Thank you very much for listening to this rather disjointed ramble once more. And I will hopefully ramble at you again same time next week. Bye.